Assalamu alaikum. This is MAP5 on Monday morning, January 26, 2026, 12626. By the grace of Allah, we're all here and healthy and blessed to be alive and well. Thank you for joining MAP5. We have an exciting program today, if indeed we can conquer our small technical problems. So make a dua for us to clear up the little jam in our program this morning. But thank you again for joining us. Of course, I'm Brother Fleming El-Amin from the American Coalition for Good Government. Our other two hosts are, of course, Sister Amatullah Sabrie and the Honorable Cheryl Sudduth. Three of us serve as the co-hosts, of course, for Muslim American Power 5, or as we call it, MAP5. We usually start off our program with, of course, a prayer, supplication to Almighty God for allowing us to be here today. And then we'll have our distinguished Honorable Cheryl Sudduth to have an icebreaker for us, inshallah, to get this day started. I hope your weather is better than ours over here on the East Coast in Winston-Salem specifically. I'm looking out my window with ice, snow, and sleet as we talk. So if we could, let's open up with a dua, short dua, Al-Fatiha from the Holy Quran, the first chapter in the Holy Quran that's often repeated around the world, at least a billion times for all the Muslims in the world. In that fashion, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين Amen. And the English translation from Yusuf Ali says, with the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, most gracious, most merciful master of all the systems of knowledge. Thee do we worship and then aid we seek. Show us the straight way. The way of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, nor those who go astray. Amen.
Amen.
Again, welcome to Map 5. Our Honorable Sister Sudduth, are you ready to break the ice on this cold, wintry morning?
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Yeah, I got my ice pick ready.
Okay.
Got an
Oh,
ice pick, a hammer, everything over here. So, oh, we talking about that ice. I was talking about different ice. So I'm
well,
talking about the ice that's killing people, but if we want to
yes.
if we want to break a different ice, I can break the this ice, but I'd like to break a different ice, but
Yes.
since
You're
this
not
is a
alone.
family show, keep it PC. All right. All right, all right, all right. I do want to talk about that ice though at some point.
Oh, yes.
I will just say for the record, since we're being recorded, for the record, you know it's bad when the same people who were singing your praises just a short while ago are outraged. When Joe Rogan is speaking against you, I had to wake up and shake myself to say, wait, we're agreeing? When me and him on the same side, we either on the side of truth or something, I don't know. That's That's a revelation, is what I'm going to say. So, as we have been doing for the last few weeks, I have a question for you. So, instead of me picking the question, I will give you a number 1 to 14. Pick a number. And since you're the host this week, sir, you get to pick the number.
All right, 7.
If it's a question I've asked you before, I might have you pick a different number. But 1 to 14, pick a number.
Okay, 1 through 14.
Yes.
Let's pick number 7 then.
What is something you think about very differently today than you did 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay.
This question is for
10 years.
everyone.
Okay. Let me write a number down here. I was 64 10 years ago. Huh? What was
So
I
10
thinking?
years ago for everyone would be approximately 2016.
I'm thinking about my birthday here. Okay. Uh, mm, well, there was an international feel of hope in the world at that point when we had President Barack Obama as our leader of the country, and a sense of connecting people instead of separating people. Um, and we had the ideas that indeed that would be our next page of progress. Sadly, that did not materialize as many of us prayed for and hoped for and worked for. Um, so now we sort of realize that indeed it takes a collective effort of all of us to accept some responsibility and not to look for a person per se, but look to the collective action of each person doing their part to make that difference. Very, very important, that perspective. And perhaps John F. Kennedy said it best when he asked the questions, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That has a lot of relevance, even today, in fact. Um, but we'll pause right there because I was of another mindset in 2016 than I am in 2026 and a little
Okay.
bit older.
Sister Amatullah, what do you have?
Oh, I'm supposed to answer the same thing?
Yes.
Um,
Everybody get the same question this time.
okay, so I am asking, what do I think about differently now than I did 10 years ago?
Yeah, what is something you think about very differently today than you did 10 years ago?
Hmm. Very differently today than I did 10 years ago. I would say, hmm, I would say the role of parents.
Tell us more.
Well, I think that as a parent, I'll speak from my own experience. As a parent, um, you're going into a stage of your life that you're not properly prepared for based on my experience in this society. And so you're kind of, it's like OJT. You come in with some basic skills, but OJT makes you deal with those um, challenges that come up in the role of a parent as you're going through your phases and also as your child or children are going through their phases. And so you're constantly learning. They're constantly learning. And then when your children become adults, you have to you have some basic role, but there are subtleties, there are changes that both the parent and the child have to adapt to in order to keep a strong relationship. And then if you're blessed with your children to have children and you're still a parent to your adult children who are parents to their children or child or children, and there may be different approaches or different philosophies. And as a parent, you have to learn how to respect your child who is a parent. So I think that you may not realize the full nuances and subtleties of that until you're actually in that situation. Did that make it clearer to you?
Yes, I mean, none of my children have children, so yes, from that aspect. So I think so.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, Sister Amatullah. I understand 1000%. With 13 grandchildren, I understand. All
Yes.
right, I didn't mean that to fear.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. So I think,
All right.
yeah, 10 years ago, my children were very young still.
Mm.
Uh, so I think, yeah. I see Miss Salima is here.
Oh, good.
You want to ask her the question, sir?
Yes, rephrase it for her in case she didn't come on time.
Okay.
Dr. Alameda, you mind responding to the question?
That's fine.
Assalamualaikum.
Like my song.
All right. So our question for the morning before we get started is, what is something that you think about very differently today than you did 10 years ago?
That is a tough one. I'm just thinking a little bit about that. I think the importance of showing up and being present has always been there. But I think now as I get older, when you think about activities, whether they're your children, your nieces and nephews, your community, I think that it's even more critical. When there was a time, I think when not that it wasn't as an importance, but I think now just knowing that whether family, community, friends, that just showing up and being a part, and really that village is so important. And so I think I realized it, but I really see a key now is having a son that is in high school, having nieces and nephews that range between 2 and 22 years old. Just the really true importance of showing up, the importance of having that village. I won't say it's completely different, but I think even more so I see the importance of that role and the values. I think sometimes we have I won't say lost sight, but it's easy with other things to forget just a key role that our village and our community and our family show in rearing our children, our communities, and I think all of the children are our children. So just remembering that, and I think really highlighting that, continue to really lean into that importance. I think was lost a bit, but I think we have to really get back to the importance of community in that village.
Thank you. Okay, American Muslim. Is that you, Sister Amatullah?
Yes, that's me. I'm trying
Okay.
to deal with some other things.
Okay, no, no, no. I just didn't know if that was
Oh,
you
it
or
was,
Sister
yeah.
Martha. Yeah. You're undercover today.
Yeah, I'm going to change it in a little bit.
No problem. All right. So I can answer, but then I can throw it back to you, Brother Fleming. I think for me it's very similar to Sister Salima, except here's mine. I think it's more along the lines of, I think it's because I when I looked at it, if I look back 10 years, it's more, because my children were younger, it's giving them more grace. giving, I understand more the aspect of giving grace and not the, I don't think I was ever heavy-handed anyway, but I'm also not salty. So it's that middle ground of how do you teach resilience without making children or others, not just children, others feel like it's hopeless when they can't achieve. And I think that the times we live in now, it is so easy to make people feel like not just because they failed, but to make them feel like a failure because they haven't achieved at something that the world has set as a standard rather than their individual standards. And so I think that right now, what I see differently is that, or I see more importantly, I don't even know if it's different. I think it's even heightened. I remember when my daughter was really young in Girl Scouts. She was probably like 6. They did a project about beauty standards for women, and we filmed it even back that young, and how important it is to develop your own standards as young women and not take on community standards. And how we, as the parents who were helping lead the project, we thought that it was important that we underscored that. And I think that now it's even more heightened that we help underscore it. But I take that for everything. We underscore that, okay, so you don't have a house at 25 or 26 or 30 or 36. Doesn't mean you're a failure. And this society, especially social media and television, puts these impossible standards that many of us parrot onto our children, our peers, our neighbors. And that can cause a lot of pressure, which leads to negative habits, which leads to negativity, which counterproduces this lack of resilience, this lack of confidence. And it's just not helpful. So I see the need for even more grace and more activities that confidence build. And going back to Dr. Salima's comment about the village, not just in family, but in building up people to understand that your timeline is your time. And how you get there sometimes is going to be different than what's pictured in social media and on television. And so that resilience is built by many of us helping build people up with that grace. And resilience is from falling down and figuring it out. And it's not failure, it's just you just haven't figured it out yet. That's what I see differently. Maybe, and I don't know if I see it differently, I see it stronger because I think I've always kind of felt that way, but I see the need even stronger now. That's all, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll allow our listening audience to participate a little later on in the program and see what their thoughts are on what's happened 10 years later they would do differently uh, than they would do then. Very important thought, though, to reflect on that. But today we have a program based on 2 issues. The American Coalition for Good Government has developed a theme for the year. And the theme is simply honoring our past, better planning our future. And in honoring our past, we want to identify some of the many, many textbooks that Imam Worthuddin Muhammad left us with and pull some excerpts from those and discuss them. Today, we had originally planned on having our honorable guest, Imam Ronald Shaheed, to lead us on a few comments on the latest book, The Treasure Under the Wall, Thursdays with the Imam. For those who don't have the book, I strongly encourage you to get the book. Something must have happened because he's always faithful when I ask him to do something. I'm sure I'll get a full dissertation from him today on why he's not present, but we will invite him back again. In honor of that intent, though, I want to just share with you just one quick paragraph from the book And then at a later time, we'll get into more details of the book. But I found this very interesting. I'll just read this one quote um, to give you a little background. Let me find the quote. Okay, here we go. All right. And again, the concept being honoring our past, so we've got to reflect back to better think forward on our plans and our strategies. Um, I had one specific, here we are. This is on page 20 under the subheading, Inspirations from a Variety of Things. And I quote, God has blessed me ever since I stood up as a young man. I don't know how old I was in Chicago on 5335 Greenwood. My friend urged me to get up and speak. It was a night when they invited you to come up and express yourself to see if you're qualified to be a minister. That was a practice back then. So my friend shamed me out of sitting there. I was very shy, and I got up there trembling almost. But when I stood up there, it looked like I could feel the audience, what it was thinking, what it was feeling. And as I spoke, I would respond to what I felt from the audience. So I've always had this, and I can feel you. So I'm just caught up in this thing, you know. My inspiration came from a great big variety of things. It came mainly from my study of scripture and mythology, not just the Quran, but Quran, Bible, mythology, and spiritual thinkers on the search for truth or meaning. That is what I was searching for. So I found a book that was on the search for meaning, and I read that book, and I really liked it a lot. It kind of centered around the Bible. In the beginning, there was the Word, but they did not use Bible. They just went right to the subject without making any reference to where they were coming from. Logos was the name of the book, and the word logos is related to logic and language. The Bible, in the beginning, there was the Word. It was just a lot of books, but mainly mythology. I started with Asian mythology because I knew Mr. Farad was from Asia, but also I went to African mythology. My mind got interested, so I just started reading mythology, Greek mythology, and of course, and world mythology, but mainly Asia and the Mediterranean areas. A little bit of Africa, not too much into Africa. I went into Africa from other reasons, but when I was searching for understanding Mr. Farad's language and to understand Bible myths, I went to these areas, Asia and the Mediterranean mostly. The Greeks, they're in the Mediterranean area to understand the logic. But ancient Egypt was very attractive. I went into that much later. It was like maybe 25 years or more later in my leadership that I was attracted to go to Egypt to study Egyptian mythology. And do you know what clicked? In the Bible, Mary was told to flee to Egypt with your child. That started it. It said flee, it said governing the masses of the people, his scheme for governing the masses of the people. That is what came to my mind almost immediately because I remembered reading a book that to come into Cairo, you couldn't get into it until you answered the question of the oracle. And the oracle would ask you, what walks on four, then on two, and then on one? And if you answer correctly, man, you could come in. Now, that's just one little excerpt from this book. It's very enriching. I read a little bit of it every day. I encourage you very strongly to get a copy of it if you don't have one already in your libraries. And inshallah, very soon we'll have the author of the book, Imam Shahid, on MAP5 to discuss it in far more detail and how he collected the information to put this book together with his meetings with Imam Muhammad on Thursdays at his home, actually. He and two other brothers went there on a weekly basis, and Imam Muhammad would share information with them on things he wanted to make sure that we recorded and publish it so people would know exactly some of the things that he actually talked about. And they took on that task. And I think Imam Shahid has published about 20 books. I will refer to another one of them during the course of this presentation, inshallah, today. But in that light, in terms of just honoring our past. I want to read one last quote, and then we'll go into some other issues here. This is from the book Wake Up to Human Life by Imam Muhammad, one of the early books that he actually published. When he really focuses in on our real nature being that of a human being first. And I'm going to just share with you one quote, and then we'll move on. This is from page 74. And he's making reference to the previous page. Let me go back to that. Religion is beautiful. It is intelligent. It respects human life so much that it wants us to have the intelligence to manage human life for ourselves. That is Islam, al-Islam. That is Christianity. That is Judaism. That is Buddhism. That is Hinduism. Every religion wants you to have the intelligence to manage your own life, to manage your own self, and to get the satisfaction of seeing your life progress, knowing that your actions, your behavior is what made that happen. I came up in bad neighborhood circumstances, and I'm not the only leader who was doing well who came up in bad circumstances. I was a child and could walk 2 blocks and run into a prostitute or a winehead. Sometimes I didn't have to walk anywhere. As soon as I stepped outside, there was a lady of the evening or a winehead or something, the drug addict or people who didn't care about anything or themselves. They were victims of the instruments of the devil like drugs, whiskey, etc. Now we're victims of the instruments of our own selves. We're not hooked on drugs, but we're not so poor that we have to drown our misery with alcohol. We live in nice apartments. We have color television. We're doing very well, but still the human life is not respected. We are mistreating our own human life, mistreating the lives of other human beings near us, our loved ones, our friends, our relatives. Parents abandoning their responsibilities to their children. And I'm not talking about the responsibility to see what they have food on the table or to see that they have clothes to wear. The greater responsibility is to see that they have good sense, to see they have intelligent human behavior. And quite often, Imam Muhammad would tell us that our real nature, before we become identified with any land, instead of just being a good human being. And he spent quite a bit of his time defining how the scheme of Satan had divided us based on skin color alone. And so I encourage you, if you don't have this copy in your library, Wake Up to Human Life by Imam W.D. Muhammad. All right, those are 2 quotes. The third item I want to refer to very quickly in terms of honoring our past. Some of you probably remember that when Imam Muhammad came into the leadership, he wanted us to study very closely those 40 hadiths, and he wanted us to also study what happened to those first 4 caliphs after Prophet Muhammad returned to Allah. So we will have an idea of the historical background we will one day have to experience ourselves. So I want to briefly share with you from the book, The Glorious Caliphate by Arthur Hussein. It's a good book on what happened in those first 4 caliphates and their experiences in leading the country or leading the community at that time, and how they set up the government in Medina. And so I'm going to just refer to what they call the principles of government, and we're just going to do one of the 7 things they included in what they call the fundamental rights of every citizen. And I quote, number 1, security of life, property, honor, and privacy. And this is based on this part of the Holy Quran. And who do not take away the life of anyone which God holds sacred except for a just cause. That's Surah 17, Ayat 33. Consume not each other's property by false pretense, nor present a part of it to judges as bribe, that you may commence or consume unjustly a part of another man's property, knowing full well. Surah 2, Ayat 183. O believers, it is not proper for one section of the people to talk lightly of another section happily, that may be better than themselves. Let none default another, nor give bad names to each other. It is a sin for a man of faith to give bad names to anyone. That, of course, is from Surah 49:11. It sort of complements what we said earlier.
Brother Fleming, your sound went down. You said Surah 49. What was the ayah?
Repeat it again, please.
Your sound has gone down dramatically. You
The
said
sound
Surah.
has.
Oh, now you're back. That
Okay.
last citation, it was Surah 49.
Yes, the last citation was, let me pull it up for you again. Yes, Surah 49, Ayat 11.
Okay.
And I'm going to, someone called in while I was on Zoom. That's why it went down like that. Back to the Zoom platform here very quickly.
Okay, maybe it's Brother Shahid, but we had two hands that are up. Brother Ismail
Okay.
Fahmy. Brother Ismail Fahmy, you had a comment or a question? You're on mute, so you need to unmute yourself, Brother Ismail. Brother Ishmael, you're on mute. You want to unmute yourself? Okay, we'll wait for Brother Ishmael. Maybe he can't talk.
No,
Oh, there you
sorry.
go.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You
Assalamu
had a
alaikum.
Okay.
comment?
Walaikum
Oh, that
assalam.
yes, I'm reading that treasure under the wall also, and I
Yes,
recommend
sir.
anyone that doesn't have it, please read it. And you may be closer to get this information, but on that riddle of the Sphinx is what it was walks on 4, then 2, and then 3. So inshallah, in the revised edition, he may look into that. So I it's just so happy you wrote that, and I said, well, let me just at least get that information. So appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, appreciate you. Walaikum assalam. Because when you read
It's
the
a human
actual,
being, isn't it?
when you read the reference, it's talking about the man with the cane. It's the last symbol of man. Get into the age where he's walking on 2 legs plus a cane. So he's walking on 3. But thank you very much, Brother Ishmael.
Okay.
Okay, that's
So
that's enough.
we have Brother Muhammad Sharif had his hand up too.
All
Well,
right, go
yeah.
right ahead, Brother Muhammad.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum
Walaikum
assalam, Brother
assalam.
Muhammad.
Yeah, I was reading along with you, the treasure on the wall,
Yes, sir.
on about inspiration from a variety of things. Yeah, I was reading along with you. Yeah, we all should
Alhamdulillah.
try to get this book. That's right. Praise
Yes,
be
sir.
to Allah. And I think Imam Rafi, he'd be glad to hear that you followed up on his not being able to come today, but you stepped right on in. Praise be to Allah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
Hey.
Mhm.
So, Brother Fleming, I do have a
Yes, sir.
comment to bring it down to the present. Cheryl, when she was talking about the ice pick, she kind of subtly um, referred to ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency. And when you just read from that, the three citations you did from the Quran, the first one, 1733, referred to not taking life.
Yes.
And I think it's important for us to zoom on this because we're talking about Muslim American power. And we're really talking about not just Muslim American power, but the human beings exercising our rights and our powers. And this governmental agency that has been let loose by the current administration um, with authority to kill human beings, because they have been given authority to kill human beings, whether you are a U.S. citizen or not a U.S. citizen. If you are anyone who opposes what they're trying to inflict on our society, you become a target for them to unleash their violence and their insanity, because that's really what it is. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge it on this program because a part of our objective is to encourage people to take on the responsibility of citizenship. And as citizens, we are responsible. We live in a country that has a constitution, and if there are government actors that are violating that constitution or citizens who are violating that constitution, then they need to be held accountable. So I would encourage everyone who is a part of the program today to write your congressperson, write your senator, write the White House, you know, and let them know that you don't agree with that if you have the heart to do it, because when you do it, you probably will become a target. But in whatever way that you can to voice your opposition to what we see going on in our country, I encourage myself and those of us who are on this Zoom broadcast to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you sort of took my thunder away from my next quote, but thank you very much for your insights. My next my next quote was on Islam and American democracy. Uh, Another book, of course, by our brother Lana Shaheed, commentary around Martin Muhammad. And this will be my last one because I want to give a chance for our second phase of our program on planning our future, having goals, educational pursuits, etc. But I'll do this, inshallah, very quickly. It's from page 62 on the book on Islam and American democracy. And it reads as follows. Subtitle, People Avoiding Responsibility and Social Order Cannot Be Free. People avoiding their responsibility in the social order cannot be free. You may act as though you're free. You may think as though you're free, but you cannot be truly free, not in the world made by man or any other world, in fact, if you avoid your own social responsibility. Freedom is a reward for hard work. In the wilds where animals are free, freedom is not protected. The survival of the fittest is the law, although individual man is thousands of years away from the animal law. But that condition can form in the freedom space of those who go about carefree, and the animal law will be their dead end street. For freedom, the wilds had to be defeated. The first to be defeated were wild animals and unprincipled people. Heavy responsibility was carried by parents. That is how the world began raising a civilized society. Public has to have citizenship knowledge. Neighbors who were not able to go it alone, so the neighbors had to band together, working for the common interest. Laws were put in place. Public land was developed and schools were opened to have life assisted by practical knowledge. To make it, to live through the raw, savage times, neighbors worked as a family of parents in the rise of civilization. Today, in modern times, to know the reality of population surviving, to have more citizenship knowledge is indispensable. They have to have citizenship knowledge. Life not understood cannot be vouchsafed and cannot get protection under the law. And as a part of our essence of our program of MAP5, we are to encourage you for civic engagement, civic participation, civic education. That's part of our mission, you could easily say. So we have to accept that responsibility. And your citizenship duty demands that you respond to things that happen in your environment that you have a position about. This assault of shooting someone 10 times on the ground like that is savagery, plain and simple. And I've written a letter to the editors in the local newspaper identifying this ICE group as the new KKK in America and all that goes along with that historically. And we can't just stand by. We have to, of course, as our sister said, contact your senators, contact your congressmen, let them know your position on these matters. At least I was encouraged with the Democrats on the House side refusing to fund the Homeland Security until they do something about what ICE is doing. And now the Senate, of course, has to vote on that matter. But that's something I was going to come to toward the latter part of the program. And thank you for reminding me, Sister Amatullah, about that. At this point, with your permission, I want to shift gears because I know my daughter who works at Duke University, Dr. Salima Hanan El-Amin Witherspoon, has joined us today. I'm honored to have her on the program to just share with us the importance of setting goals, so that we can have a better future and plan a future for ourselves. And she has become our family organizer, to put it mildly.
Alhamdulillah.
And she reminds me that, Daddy, you cannot save the world every day. So, in that regard, I'm honored to present to you Dr. Salim El-Amin, who's at Duke University. She has a PhD in public health policy, and I could list a number of things. She's most proud to have been an HBCU graduate of North Carolina Central. After that, she went to Drexel University to get her master's, and of course, Florida A&M to get her PhD. So, Dr. Salim El-Amin, thank you for joining us.
And you're on mute, so there you go.
And thank you all so much. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm I'm honored. I think one of the things that definitely stood out and my father talked about was my deep love for HBCUs and how they really molded me into who I am today and some of the best decisions that I have. One of the best decisions definitely that I made attending an HBCU, but I think just in general, it's really important for our young people to really start to set goals. And so we, again, with my son, with my nieces and nephews, not only to write those goals down, to think about them, to start thinking about them early. We start off in our family really showing we want young children to participate, whether we're doing demonstrations. Some of my earlier memories are marching with my father, protesting apartheid and such. And then my son in the stroller, doing Moral Mondays when he was young. So really just letting them see the injustices that we face and then how they can set goals to really try to address them and just really being a servant. And so I think just having those goals, writing them down, I think college is really critical. And important for us as a part of social capital and our network. I know that college is not for everyone, and there are trade, skills, military, all types of options. But it has just really helped my family to really move us forward. We try to ingrain that into the ones coming behind. My oldest niece will be graduating this year. But we really try to emphasize college as a way to bring your family forward. Just thinking about your net worth and income, thinking about the networks that you will meet in colleges and just the opportunities that it will open up for you, in your future. So I think it's just really important to whether you're going to college, going to the military, thinking about trade schools, different opportunities to really think about those goals. And I think early, we often ask, we always tried in our family to really treat children like adults, talk to them like adults, have them answer, be around, give them opportunities to speak so they can get used to engaging with adults. I think that's an issue that we have now so much with being on those phones, being connected is just they're losing the art of conversation. They're losing kind of the art of engagement with other people, with elders, just with family and friends. And so just to kind of put those phones down and let's pay attention, let's have some conversations and really just be present in these moments. And so I think just really setting those goals, thinking about them, taking time. I love the part earlier about showing grace. I think that was so important because really this generation is dealing with things that we didn't have to deal with. Even as I'm hopefully, inshallah, going to hit 50 this year. The things that my son, my nieces and nephews, stepchildren are dealing with, they're things that I didn't have to deal with. And so just trying to show them grace in these different situations and trying to honor them and meet them where they are is really, really important. So I think we just try to help and mold and guide the best we can to provide some wisdom and advice. We often tell my son, it's not that we know more, we just been here a little bit longer and sometimes we can see things a little bit clearer. And so keeping that open lines of communications, I think is really important and really just for opportunities and networks. Because so often it's about who we know. As many of us know, those are really ways to open doors for us and to move our families, our communities forward. And so I think that's just what I would really like to, continue to pour into that message, continue to pour into younger people. I think the earlier we can get them going to college fairs, thinking about next step, just really thinking. I'll just say thinking and thinking critically is an issue. I think that is often somewhat lost now is to really just think critically about next steps and how are you going to get there? I have a niece that wants to, I think, go to cosmetology school, which is a great career. We know many of them make more than college graduates do. And so we're like, okay, let's think about that. What are the steps that you need to do? What can you do in high school to get you, ready for that? Have you done, any research on the hours that it'll take? So I think just really thinking about what is it they love to do? What is it they like to do? And really the direction. I think so in my area, in my field, we see just AI everywhere. A lot of computer science and things and those different degrees and background. And so really just finding what the interests are, and trying to mold them to really think about next steps, what the future is going to look like, what they would like for their future to look like, and then really trying to map a path where we can help them to get there. So we can hopefully, I always tell my son, I'm ready for you to change the world. And, it just takes one or two people to really do that, but just lifting them up to know that they have the opportunity to do that. And so I think just all of those things are ways that I think that we can help prepare our next generation to really move us forward and hopefully make this world a better place. But happy to open up for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Well, listen, I have one question for you, if you don't mind. When you
Absolutely.
were at North Carolina Central University, that HBC you made reference to earlier, there was a mentoring program you got involved with that was very beneficial to those children in the long term and currently. Would you mind commenting on what that program is like and some of the people involved and how they're progressing today as a result of that mentoring program?
Absolutely. So I was a big sister. And so I know many of you know the Big Sister, Big Brother program. I was in my first year of college there. And believe it or not, my cousin was receiving her master's in social work at UNC. And I think her mentor had come to her and say, hey, we have these four young ladies that need sisters. Do you know anyone who might be able to step in and serve as their big sisters? At that time in North Carolina Central, we had just implemented you had to have 120 community service hours to graduate. So I had four friends. Each took on a little sister, through their big sister program. This was over 30 years ago, and still to this day, my sister that I took on is still my sister to this day. Her children call me Aunt Salima. Call her children Auntie Patty. She went on to excel, receive her PhD, is doing extremely well. We built those relationships, so we are family. They had experienced a traumatic event with their mother, unfortunately being murdered at that time, and they were with their grandmother who was older. So that was the need for that, building that relationship and them needing those big sisters. But we have continued that, all eight of us, I guess, with four older sisters to really build and nurture. And we didn't know at the time that would, that relationship would continue and be so much more. But I think just again, thinking about service, we were doing it to get our 120 hours, not knowing that it was going to build a lifetime relationship where we lean on each other. She actually lives 8 minutes from me now. She Anything I've accomplished in life, she's been there, and the same, and vice versa. And we are truly family to this day, going on about 25 years later. So that was through that big sister program. But again, that goes back to networks. If my cousin hadn't been at UNC receiving her master's in social work to tell me about these young girls, and we were able to get our hours, but more importantly to that, we were able to mold these young women, and we're family to this day.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. I have two questions, but I do want to honor Brother Michael Hameen had his hand up, Brother Fleming, when you were reading, and he might also have a question for Sister Salima. So I'll let him go before I ask my question.
Thank,
Brother
thank,
Okay, thank
th-
you.
thank you, and thank you, MAP5, and for hosting Dr. Salima. My question has to do with the awareness that the Creator's given us various capacities, and this idea is mentioned in the Quran. But my question has to do with the need to organize and be aware that we have something to offer, but some of us have greater capacity than others. How do we, in this environment of me, how do we get back to what we know we have to have in terms of uh, the acknowledgement of fellowship and leadership?
You're directing that to Dr.
Yes.
Salima? Okay.
And Dad, I'll let you take a stab at this first, and I'm gonna follow up with my points.
I knew that was coming. I knew that
Yes,
was
yes.
coming. No, no problem at all. What's called the $1 million question. And there's no easy answer, actually. But it starts with the individual being an example. Uh, so that people can see in you that kind of sensitivity to community. Uh, give you two quick examples. Uh, when I ran for county commissioner in Forsyth County, I had built a reputation of being an educator, being involved in the community, et cetera. And people knew me as a community servant leader without running for anything because of my long history in this community. And so the first people who responded when they heard that I was running were my former students. They literally raised all the money I needed for the most part to run my campaign, except for a few dollars. But they challenged all my students I ever had to raise to match what they gave me. And it was based on that relationship. As Dr. Salima mentioned earlier, relationships are critical. I, if I can put it this way, enjoyed my classroom time with my students, and they knew that. And they knew that I respected them. I would interfere when necessary to get them back on track if I saw them getting off track. And it was a love connection between me and my students. And that long-term relationship over the number of years gave me a certain perspective in the community that people trusted me. And so if you want to really engage people to leadership, to followership, et cetera, be the example yourself first. Let people see your sincerity. Let people know that you're concerned about them and that you're genuine. Most young people don't have the brain development on high level cognitive skills, but they do have a very sensitive development on sensory skills, and they can read you very quickly. So if they don't feel that you're sincere, they'll let you know, man, you're not for real. And so they will build a relationship with you based on how they perceive you. So if you're sincere, they will listen to you. If you're not sincere, they don't mind telling you where to go and sometimes, but you have to demonstrate your sincerity first. Be the person you perceive that they need and be sincere. And those other things will come into place over time based on your work in that capacity. And I work with a number of programs. There's a group called the Criminal Justice System or Preventive Criminal Justice System Council here. And we fund a number of different programs for students who get themselves in legal trouble, how to redeem themselves. In one degree, it's not so much redemption, it's just being responsible for your actions. And they're given options to get certain skill sets, to work so many hours, to go through various programs to get them on a better track. And so those are tools you can use to, of course, give those opportunities to kids who need a second chance. But I think that summarizes, a very short answer. And I'll let the distinguished doctor take it from there.
And I think it's important just thinking about networks and community, pouring into them. Like you said, a lot of them don't know early what they want to do. I have a nephew that is an amazing artist. And so even though he's only 13, we've been calling him an artist since he was about 7. So I think just pouring into them, letting them know, oh, this is, made. So recognizing their talents, whether they go that way or not. We have dancers and artists, but letting them know that everyone's talent and skill is going to be different. I know it's so often that we try to compare, but letting them know that their gifts are uniquely yours. And so just really recognizing that, trying to support them in that so they can see themselves doing that, whether it's dancing, artists, cosmetology is trying to be aware of what their interests are and really continue to pour into them and support them in whichever avenues that might go. I think it's really important so they can kind of see themselves doing that, see if it's something they want to continue, but really just kind of having a pulse on those and just kind words. I think as young people, oftentimes they're done, dealing with so many different things. So just a kind word, a smile, being open and honest and someone that they can talk to about different things and just having the opportunity to really, mentor and guide them as they are still trying to figure it out. And that can be a process, but supporting them along the way and letting them know, again, they don't have to know it all in this moment, in this second, it can change, but that they are supported and that their gift is important.
Okay, so with your permission, Brother Fleming, I'd like to ask my 2 questions.
Yes, please go right ahead.
Okay. They both relate to education, which is a priority in our community, or it should be if it's not. Um, And you mentioned that in your planning that you encourage your children, your nieces, your nephews, as far as to think about going to college or trade schools or whatever. And then you also uh, mentioned your experience as a HBCU student and graduate and the importance of that to you. Um, the question that I have that deals with education in general, but if we look at higher education, there are many, I'm thinking of one professional right now who is actually a finance professor, PhD, who really cautions people about the need to establish financial literacy and also a strong financial foundation in going forward. And so, in your planning, when you're encouraging students to go to college or trade schools, and also there needs to be a financial component for them to know you have to be able to finance this so that you're not 70 years old and still trying to pay off student loan debt, which has been probably the greatest racket in our history. And then the other side of that is like if you look at HBCUs or um, if you look at on the elementary and the high school level, Clara Muhammad school system, and eventually, hopefully, a Islamic college or university, you have to have the financial strength to support those institutions as well. So I know you're not a financial expert, but I'm just curious in your planning with your family or with people that you come in contact with, are there any tips or encouragement that you offer to them in the financial area for your future?
Thank you so much for that question. And I think absolutely, we definitely love to see them graduate without any debt. That's actually a goal for our next gen, which is tough. But one of the things they can do that is they have a 3.0 coming out of high school. So really focusing on those high school grades, doing well, taking opportunities for free ACT and SAT prep. So we do have those conversations. And even if you are accepted here in North Carolina, if you come into your senior year with a 2.8, you're actually automatically accepted into about 50 universities across North Carolina without even have to apply. It's a new program I think called Carolina Connect to really take away some of the obstacles and barriers with getting accepted. So if you come in your senior year with a 2.8, you get accepted automatically into 50 schools. And you're right, those are going to have varying costs. We know that here in North, I think public schools are about 25 in the UNC system, where that's NC State, North Carolina Central, UNC Greensboro, are ranging about 25,000 a year. Where if you look at something like a Duke or a Campbell, you're talking about 60 to 80,000 a year. And so I think you have to have those conversations about money, because you don't want them to come out of school with $300,000-400,000 worth of debt. And so I think the more we can prepare and plan and think about that, let's get these grade, really focus on having really solid GPA, having a really good SAT scores. Don't just limit yourself here. If there are other places where you can go and receive some money, I think having that plan is so important. My niece that I was talking about that's graduating this year, she's at LMU out in California. And even though she did get a substantial amount, now that she's about to graduate, she often reflects on if she had gone to I want to say it's Temple. She had also gotten into Temple, that her money would have stretched further. And so now as a senior, she's reflecting back because she did get a good scholarship, but she's still coming out with some debt. And she said, if I had known in my senior year of high school, I probably potentially would have gone, because you get these rides. And that's one thing about really looking through what you're offered. What are they going to cover? What's going to be left? Because sometimes even I have a stepdaughter that got a dean's scholarship to UNC, but when you really look down at it, you get a letter saying $30,000, but if you spread that over several years, it's not a ton of money. So I think
Right.
educating, that's such a great question on educating yourself on the actual cost, room and board. What is it going to take? comparing the different colleges so you can definitely be prepared. We are definitely about trying to graduate as close to debt free as possible. And I think even that education piece for me, I didn't even get financial education until I was in college. And so now we talk to, knowing about credit and knowing about checkings and savings accounts and all of those different things, I think is so important in high school that's needed. So you brought up so many good points, but I think I just try to guide them on right now what they can control is their GPAs, getting tutoring, getting support, and having really solid ACT and SAT so you can get potentially a full ride or at least half a scholarship to college so there's less debt. Because I think that should definitely be a goal to, you start off so much better if you can be debt free, but really educating, I think, not only ourselves, but our community. So let's look at this, offer letter, this acceptance letter. What is it actually going to cover? What's going to be left? What might be another institution we might need to look at that might not have the best program, but it's still solid and you can get out without that debt. And so I think these are really good conversations, and all of us I think are responsible for playing a part in being educating ourselves so we can give really good advice to family and friends. Such great
And
And I
content.
would add, in the
and
high school
also,
curriculum in North Carolina, we have a required course to take a financial uh, course. Personal finance is the name of it specifically. That's really required of you to take to graduate. So there is a small component of that in the high school curriculum. More can be added to it by all means. Go ahead, Sister Summers. I don't mean to interrupt you. I
no, I
want to
was
share
going to
another
say,
thought.
I don't want to give a commercial, but Boyce Watkins, he has this Black Business School that is online, virtual, and all of that. But he does make some very good points and strong points in this area of weighing the value of the debt that you incur
Mhm.
in a college situation or any higher education situation versus strengthening your financial knowledge and literacy and encouraging parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunties when the baby is born or when you find out someone is pregnant with a baby, start some kind of investment account for the child so that when it comes time for them to enter, if they decide that they might need a specialized skill where they will go to college or a technical school, that they won't um, that they won't be burdened by, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they are. And then also, the more we as a community, individuals become financially literate and investors in the future, um, the more that we can support HBCUs, like the endowments of the HBCUs compared to just some state universities, it's like, a healthy person versus a malnourished person in terms of the amount of, you think of a Harvard or a Yale, these places that have billions in reserve, their reserve amount might be billions, or their endowment amount might be billions. Um, I remember when I was working at Berkeley, the reserve of Berkeley was, I want to say, $20 billion. And that's a state school, you know. Um, and every year that tuition is going up. My daughter, when she went to Riverside to live in the dorm and housing, at least with the state schools, housing and parking and transportation and housing is a cash cow that brings in money versus, tuition and fees and all of that. To live in the dorm might have been, I can't even remember because it was so long ago, but let's say, maybe it was 1,200 a month. And we're talking about over close to almost 20 years ago. All right, 1,200 a month. They're getting that in a suite with 4 students. So that's almost 5,000 a month that they're getting in rent. Whereas across the street, in the first year, they required all freshmen to live in the dorm. Across the street, she could get a 2-bedroom apartment, and I think it was like 600 a month or something like that. But I was ready to go down there and move her out myself to that $600 a month versus that $1,200 a month. So I'm just saying, to your point, you got to look at the fine details of what you're getting and housing and all those ancillary things and the requirements that they may make of you if you have to be on campus the first year. You got to factor in all of those costs. And
Yes.
as families, we have to become more investors and building up the money that we're going to need for the future moves that we plan to make.
Yes.
Yeah, I want
Yes.
to add something, Brother Fleming.
Yes. Go right ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying, and I see Brother Michael me put something in chat, and he had his hand up. And I want to bring this aspect because I have the college students, and I made a purposeful decision for Morehouse for both of my sons. I knew it was more expensive. I didn't care. I didn't care. And to Dr. Salima's point, because I wanted them, and they chose Morehouse, and I'm glad that they did. I went to Spelman, but they chose Morehouse. They were accepted into all kind of schools, and elite schools, state schools, all of them. But they chose Morehouse, and I saved for that. And not only did I save for it, not only did they get scholarships, and I was willing to go in debt for it because I was wanting them to be around that environment. I wanted them to be around successful Black men. I wanted them to have Black professors because they went to school where they did not have that. They didn't have that. They didn't have Black male professors every day. They didn't have that excellence in their academic life. And that means I have to pay a little bit more every month to pay that off, then I'm willing to make that investment. Every day, we try and tell our young men that they are worthy, and then we're not willing to make that investment. We'll spend $200 on some tennis shoes. We'll spend $1,500 to go to a football game or a concert. But when it comes to our children, we want to scrimp. We'll spend $50,000 on a car, but we won't spend it on an education. We want to scrimp. We want to say, well, if I can't get a scholarship, you're gonna have to go to the community college, or you're gonna have, if you don't find a scholarship, you're not worthy. No, my children are worthy of me spending the $200,000 if that's what I have to do to put them in an environment where they feel safe, they feel comfortable. They have to live in those dorms for 4 years. I know what it felt like to not feel comfortable for any period of time, especially my daughter at 16, being on a campus and feeling like you don't belong. So if whatever it took to make her feel comfortable in that environment, I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to pay that extra to give her that private room because they have to live there. They have to do that work. They have to feel that. And we have to be better at saying, I'm going to manage my expenses when they're born, as you said, Sister Amatullah. And I say, if I can, I reach out. I planned for my children. I planned for my children. I didn't go in this like, I'm going to have children and then when they go to school, I'll figure it out. I knew, but I'm a planner. I knew that, 20 years from now, it was the most magical moment taking my son to Atlanta because it was 20 years from when I came from Atlanta to California. I went from California and brought him to the AUC because I came from the AUC to California where my husband was. So it was this very weird, and I say weird like and joyous moment, like taking him back where I came from. And it was just, I didn't pick it for him per se. I was very happy that he picked it. And, he could have played baseball anywhere, but he chose that. And so whenever we keep saying, I'm not, And I said, where would you go if it didn't matter? Where would you go? Don't worry about the money. And I think sometimes we guide their decisions based on money. We have enough money. A lot of us, we have enough money.
A lot of us, not all of us. And for some,
I said, I didn't say all of us. I
yeah,
said
I
a
know.
lot of us.
I
A
understand.
lot of us.
I
A
can
lot of us.
refer back
Hold on,
to,
hold on, hold on.
go
Hold on.
ahead.
Let me finish this thought. Let me finish this thought. A lot of us. We have enough money. Is how do we prioritize that? And I'm not saying everybody needs to go to whatever school, but I know there's enough HBCUs that they go into the realm, right? They're not all Morehouse, they're not all Hampton, they're not all Howard, they're not all, Spelman. They don't all have the same, amount, right? We have some in Texas, we have some in North Carolina, South Carolina. They're all over, and the prices are all different. We made choices because the state schools that we have in California, in Texas, in all over in Florida, they cost more than a lot of our HBCUs. We made that choice. A lot of us made that choice, and some of us made that choice because we want our children right underneath us. When the HBCU is a plane ride away. And I've talked to a lot of people, even in California, who don't know anything about HBCUs. You mention a school and they're like, what? I didn't even know about HBCUs. I didn't know anything about it. And they come every year. We have an HBCU fair. And you go over there and they're just like, their eyes wide open. Like, what? How this exists? I didn't know that I can get accepted on the spot. I didn't know it costs this much because they're so locked into this whitewashed way of thinking that I have to go to Cal State. I gotta go to UC and then get mad because they're in debt. You don't have to be in debt. You don't have to, but you also have to start thinking about who has my best interest in mind because that is not measurable in dollars. Sometimes our children need that from 18 to 20, 21, they need that separation, but they need somebody who's thinking about them, who's thinking about their mental, psychological, social well-being. And that doesn't have dollars attached sometimes. And it's not, we as parents, we can't always fix that for them. And I know we always want to, but we can't. Sometimes when they're trying to find their way, they need to be able to go to their professor, that uh that roommate that looks like them, that friend, somebody else who's going through what they're going through, and not in these historically white schools. And I went to University of Illinois too, so I know the difference between the two of them. And I'm just saying that sometimes we get caught up on just always talking about the money of it. And I'm telling you, the value that you get out of it a lot of times is exceeds the money. And I don't want my children graduating with a lot of debt either. So I said, I can afford it. I can afford it. I'm at the point of my life and my career where I knew I was making the money. And I said, you don't worry about it. This is my responsibility as your parent. I'm going to make sure that you get this education because I signed up for this as your parent. Not everybody can do that. I recognize that. I realize that. But I knew that I could. And I think that those of us who know that we can, we have that obligation. And I know that I can also give back to the scholarship fund. So I do that for somebody who can't, some parents who can't. And that's what I'm talking about. That's where the community that Salima mentioned earlier comes in. This is where the community that Michael mentioned earlier comes in. We come in and we say, okay, for those families that you just said that not everybody can, okay, well, I can't pay for another 250 for a whole family for 4 years, but I can do something. That's all I'm saying on that note.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, let me make a 30-second comment, then I'll turn it back over to my sister. Put me on a time clock here. By the grace of Allah, all of our kids went to college, and some have degrees like my oldest daughter. My other daughter's working her PhD right now in civil engineering, in fact, at North Carolina State. And my son has his master's degree in Washington, D.C., works for the Department of Transportation, urban planning degree, and architect degree. And we have a son who's into computers, they design computer systems, etc. But they all have at least a foundation that my wife and I decided early on they were going to have a foundation of knowledge. Some got the BA, the BS, the MA, the PhD, etc. But that was our commitment to our children, that they would have that opportunity. And when you think of it in context, historically, all those HBCUs that we have in North Carolina, and we have the greatest number here in North Carolina, they were started when our people had very little resources. Let me say that again. When our people collectively had very few resources. I'll be very specific. Winston-Salem State University, they had a one-room schoolhouse called Slater Industrial Academy. Today they have multiple degrees. They offer masters, et cetera, and PhDs. But it started off with a one-room schoolhouse, 1892, young man by the name of Atkins. You can go down the list here in North Carolina. So their will, their vision was to improve the quality of life for their collective community. And they made the sacrifice to make that happen. Over time, they evolved from a one-room schoolhouse to sometimes state universities, sometimes just state colleges, et cetera. But they had the will, they had the dream, and they had the drive to make a better situation for future generations than what they experienced themselves. So some of it is, what is your vision for the future of your children? What is your vision for the future of your community? Money for most of those schools was like pennies been saved compared to, and I hate to use my daughter as an example, but Duke University compared to another HBCU, oh my God, it's like night and day in terms of endowments, et cetera. But those HBCUs provide a quality education, a nourishing environment that you would not get in some of your historically white university settings. And I've experienced both. I was in an Upward Bound program in high school that allowed me to go to Cornell College on a full academic scholarship. But the nurturing I got at WSSU as a teenager prepared me, along with my high school education, to get a full scholarship to Cornell College. And I went to other schools beyond that. But the foundation I got, loving teachers in high school, middle school, elementary school. My grandfather said, boy, but that big head of yours, put something in it. Nobody can ever take it away from you. Out of love for me, but also giving me direction and purpose in my life. So when a child is born, I'm going to strongly suggest, invest in some kind of instrument, and I mean a financial instrument, to provide an educational opportunity for that child when they're of that age. Now, my grandfather only had a second or third grade education. He paid me $5 a week. He kept $2 and saved it. I had no idea he'd been saving money for me all those years. So it's not so much the amount of money, it's the consistency you have in developing the habit of savings. And that's what we have to do more collectively. The other side of that coin is giving back something. I hate to even say how much we don't give back to our HBCUs as a collective people. We graduate, some give back, the majority don't participate. And so they'll beg and scream and holler and shout to try to get people to give back to an institution that gave you a foundation to advance your life. So we got to break this idea of not giving back. That's a big problem. And it's getting more of a problem today because the resources are somewhat limited today. So be giving, be appreciative, be grateful to who helped you get where you're going. And inshallah, the community will benefit from all of that. I don't mean to, take up too much time because I want others to ask questions while we have these guests. Did someone else come online that I had invited by chance? It's a young man from Denver, Colorado online with a 575-336-575 telephone number.
The phone that I see that has a hand raised up, I think that's Amatullah Alaji-Sabrie. I could be wrong, but we do have
Okay.
a hand that's raised, and it says
Okay.
call in user 1. So you can unmute yourself and make your comment and your question or question.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Here it is.
Walaikum assalam.
Amatullah.
Okay. My comment has to do, and I like feedback, with something that I've been working on and I observed recently, and that is in regard to the way that the older generation now seems to ignore or to disregard the younger generation when they're in meetings or gatherings or just around Originally, it was I was trying to get used to doing that just with the strange children that I met on the street, whatever, in the grocery store, just give some eye contact, kind of a pleasant look, a smile. But then I was at a masjid, and I noticed a little girl, sitting by herself or whatnot, and I kind of ignored. I came in, I made sure I went out of my way to just give her greetings, and at the King Reverend Dr. King Day observance Monday again, same thing. So I just want to, I guess it's a comment that and a request, if there's anyone that knows of any way that we can reverse this now, because we didn't used to be that way. And the older people from my generation always included us when I walked in the church, whatever. I knew I was going to get a smile from Sister So and So, whatever. So if you want to give any comments or anything on how we now, as a Muslim community and as a broader community, can kind of reverse that. And even the child is on the phone or whatever, you can still tap them on the shoulder and say, "How you doing?" Assalamu alaikum or whatever. Oh, okay, that's my comment.
That's good. That's a valuable comment. I wanted to go back to the point that I was making as far as investment. And I hear what you're saying, Sister Cheryl. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think I'd like to broaden the view from maybe our own individual experiences to the broader community experience of there are I think what is important is the mindset has to be changed. Not everyone prioritizes education. That's the reality. Um, and I've experienced that as someone who tried to establish an Islamic school, that given the choice of paying and free, people are going to go to free because they feel like, okay, well, I fulfill at least the minimum requirement. And if I can get it with free, I'm going to get it with free. And what that to me shows is that the priority is not on education. So we have to work to make the priority on education. But I also agree with the idea of people should not have to pay so much for education that 20, 30, 40 years later, they're still trying to pay for that education. Why? Because that education did not equip them to make the financial gains in the world that are necessary to live a comfortable life. And I think that if you were to survey and talk to many people who have gone to HBCUs or state universities or whatnot, that many of them would have second thoughts maybe about the choices that they made. I think because number one, that financial base was not established before they're even in high school. Um, and it's important for the parents, like Brother Fleming, you mentioned the point as far as your grandfather. It was the consistency, that $2 a week or a month or whatever your pay schedule was, the consistency of saving that for something in the future. And we are in an age of, uh, for the last 60 or 70 years probably, of instant gratification, instant coffee, instant tea, um, cup of noodles. Everything is right now, right now, right now. And it takes your focus off of you have to plan for the future. We came into these urban environments and we got away from that farming environment where you got to put the seed in the ground. You got to fertilize the ground. You got to make sure it's good soil that you're putting that seed in. You got to make sure you have it at the right position for the sun to hit it, to give it what it needs to grow and to water it. And so that is time. That's a time process. And we've been brought up in a society of just instant everything. And so
Please
all of
mute
that,
your phones. Please mute your
all of
phones if you're not talking.
and I don't see what phone it is that is, unless it's Cheryl's or yours, because everyone else is on mute. And so it's mindset. That's where our problem is. It's we have to turn our minds in a different directions, reorder our priorities. Um, and for us going into Ramadan, this is a good time to examine what are those areas that we need to look at and reset and move further in the future with the plans that we may have. So um, yeah, consistency, thinking ahead and planning, like Dr. Salima mentioned, and having the right priorities and encouraging all of those things are. But I think we have to look on a broader um, uh, perspective. I'll get back to Cheryl's thing about grace. I know about, I guess it must be at least 15 or 20 years ago, there was a student that I encountered that um, he was kind of sad because his parents wouldn't sign for to do the parent loan for him to get financial aid. And so they'd put it all back on him. Well, I couldn't understand that at that time. I really didn't understand that because in my family, education was a priority. And so I saw my mother and my grandmother suffer to send me to private school at a time when I think my grandmother, she might have been still working at the Waldorf Astoria as a housekeeper. And my mother was working in um, a Chinese luncheonette in Harlem, believe that or not, as a waitress, a counter person. But yet they scrimped and saved so that I could go to Catholic school, you know. But that's because education was their priority, and that drilled into me that you make education a priority. But everyone does not have that experience where they have a family where education takes that priority. So we have to think broader on how we can encourage and influence people to change their mindset. And it should not take up $100,000 for someone to come out of a 4-year institution with a BS. That is BS because many of them come out with degrees that in the world they're not prepared, um, and they become deflated when they've spent 4 or 5 years to get this degree, and then they graduate, and then they don't have the opportunities that they had hoped to have, and they end up in debt, and they spend decades trying to get out of a debt, and that's been the reality of education here in America, and we have to think creatively of how to change that. Um, Michael Hameen has his hand up.
Okay. And then we'll make a comment about the future of our children, planning the future of our children. Go ahead, Michael. Imam Hameen.
You have to unmute yourself, Michael. Michael, you have to unmute yourself. Okay, maybe he stepped away or is having problems.
Okay. But two things before I forget my thought pattern. Just you reminded me of what my grandfather would say quite often also. He said, you need hand knowledge and brain knowledge. In other words, learn a skill that you can use your hands with, but don't ever forget to also develop your brain because that will allow you to go even further sometimes than your hands. But have that balance, have that skill set that you can make a living for yourself with your hands or with your brain, a combination of both. But I think for our generation, we really have to think through what life experiences they're engaging in now to make their life better tomorrow. The better we prepare them with other options, the better off they will be. Um, I vividly remember a grandparent calling me when I was teaching to tell me that the child in my classroom would be the first child to graduate in her family from high school.
Mm-hmm.
This was an older Caucasian lady. She was calling to thank me for encouraging her son to graduate. This young man went to a career center, that's what we call it here at that time, basically a trade school to learn mechanical uh, car repairs. Graduated with a certificate. He brought it back to show me. He said, Mr. El-Amin, look what I got. It was a certificate to be an auto mechanic, basically. He got a job making making $25,000 out of high school. Now, his grandmother also called me back shouting almost about how happy she was.
She got the Holy Ghost.
Yes, and stayed in school and graduated. But just to prove the point, though, indeed, each one of us have different talents. And I would tell my students, God don't make no junk. So don't
Right.
devalue yourself. Don't devalue your purpose. Just find your niche. It'll come eventually. But you got to do a little searching, do a little soul searching, try some things out that you think might really attract your passion, because in life eventually you want to do that gives you the greatest satisfaction, and that will lead you in different directions, and so you can make a contribution. So you want to give that opportunity to your children. Some, as it was said earlier, they will pursue the academic preparation, get the biggest degree they can. I know some people who have 3 PhDs. They just love being in an academic environment, and
Mhm.
they just love it, and they're successful. They write books. That's their livelihood. Others I know who were very brilliant in school, and they didn't quite make it out of that environment of the school age, trying to impress people, and ended up doing some things against their own health. Some of them lost their lives because they got, early addictions, even though they had cognitive skills to match anybody else. They just didn't have the drive or the passion to take that into a very positive direction. So, what do we do as preparing our children for the future? We really got to give them every skill opportunity to be successful. And that will include, for some, academic preparation. Go to as many trade schools, colleges, universities as you can to get you some knowledge to make a living for yourself. Others will say, look, they're skilled, trained. They can do better with their hands. We have a young man come to our house the other day to do a magnificent job in our garage. He got encouraged from middle school to become an entrepreneur, never work for anybody else but himself. So I'm saying this so we never should shortchange our students, our loved ones, our grandchildren. Give them all we can give them to give them a foundation to pursue their own interest level. In my family, we always push education. You know, uh, my mother and father didn't get that opportunity, but they put it in me, and their parents put it in me. Boy, as I said before, they call me the little big-headed clerk. You put something in that big head of yours, nobody can ever take it away from you. And so I was always encouraged to study, to study, to study, etc. And so that was my vehicle. Um, and so let's give them a foundation, give them a knowledge base, the self-confidence, so they can be successful. Give them that from the home, because the home is where it all starts, said brothers and sisters. As you well know, the foundation has to be encouraged there. They need to hear some positive comments. Yes, you can. Yes, you will. Sometimes you better, but most of the times I love you and I want you to be the best you can be, etc. But provide that nurturing environment at home, because they're gonna have enough hard knocks in life once they leave the home environment. Um, I want to give other people a chance to make their comments because our time is almost down to 10 minutes. So I invite you to make your comments. I do have a few things I want to conclude with from on Islam and American democracy. So we'll open it up for questions from our listening audience. I want to thank my daughter, Dr. Salima Hanan El-Amin Witherspoon, for participating today. If you have any questions for her, now is your chance. She has limited time because she's a very busy young lady. And I thank her for being involved in our MAP5 program today. Any
Yeah.
questions?
I think Michael might be back. I see his hand went down. So, Michael, we tried to acknowledge you. If you are back, unmute yourself. And then Sister Cheryl had her hand up. And I see
Okay.
Brother Ishmael put his hand up.
Okay.
So, Michael, you want to unmute
Go ahead,
yourself?
Michael.
If not, we'll go to Sister Cheryl and then Brother Ishmael.
I can go after Brother Ishmael. I know he's working, so.
Okay. Okay, Michael, you haven't unmuted yourself, so I'm going to take it that you may have been called away from your computer. So, Brother Ishmael, why don't you go?
Yes, just real quickly. Assalamu alaikum. I always enjoyed the show.
Wow.
And thank the guests, Dr. Salima. I am with Dr. Salima in my family, my sister, so we had that in common. Assalamu
Okay.
alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Oh, that was your comment, Brother Ishmael? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Honorable Cheryl Sudduth.
A couple things. The other thing I wanted to say about education is we didn't speak about this today. So, and Dr. Slima, I'd like to hear your take on this you mentioned it a little bit, but this thing about sending students to schools and about majors, right? Because part of the reason why they can't find a job is because they just go to school and they just take whatever. They don't take the majors that's going to pay them, right? So you can go to school whatever you want to, but if you take a job and you're majoring in something that's not going to get you a job afterwards, you're not going to get a job, or you're not going to get one that's going to pay you. So part of setting them up for success is we got to tell the truth. Somebody asked, Brother Michael asked earlier, how do we get back to, helping our communities thrive? And I forget his actual words. And part of mine is tell them the truth. We can still use kind words and be empathetic and build up their confidence and give them grace, but we have to tell the truth. Sometimes, yeah, I'm five, not even 5'2", I'm 5'1". I'm not going to be a runway model. I'll be great in print. I'm not going to be a runway model. So as much as I want to be Tyra Banks, ain't having it. Naomi Campbell, ain't having it. Now my daughter 5'8", she's great. So if you can't dribble a basketball, you're not making the NBA, darling. I know you love Michael Jordan, but you got two left feet, and you're not gonna make it to, you're not gonna make it to be a prima ballerina. So sometimes we have to tell the truth and guide them in the direction that's going to lead them to, you can have passion for something. I have passion for science. I wanted to be a doctor. I remember telling my mother, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pediatrician. She said, darling, you don't like people. You're going to be a great scientist, though, but you don't like people and you don't like touching people. So that was a reality. So sometimes it's a reality check. The other thing is, how do we speak to them about that? So I wanted to hear your take about the majors, and then also addressing what Sister Amatullah just asked us. I didn't hear anybody answer her question about, not speaking to younger people. I've seen it myself. I've been on the receiving end of it myself. So I wanted to hear what people are going to answer her question
It's a very
about
important question.
older generations not speaking to younger generations at the masjid or at events, etc.
I'll tackle the first. I was a biology major, chemistry minor, and so I had lots of friends, unfortunately, that were, I won't say soft science, but psychology. And I don't try to deter anyone, social science majors, because all that's really important. It gets to the root of where we are. But what I do encourage is if you major in something like sociology or psychology, that you potentially minor in something a little tougher, that you're going to have to do some type of internship. You're going to definitely need to go get a master's degree, potentially at a PWI. You're going to have to look at networks. So how are you going to use that degree to really make it more profitable? And so that is, I think we have to have tough conversations, because you're right. People get there and think that they graduate, but then there's just no jobs, or you have to almost get a PhD to really make any money. Even though public health is my field, I was thinking about medical school, was on that medical school track, but tried to think about some other ways I could help. But even public health is considered a social science. But I was able to kind of make some inroads, continuing my education. So we have to, I think, have those. What is your long term goal? My younger brother that was going to come on, he just has a bachelor's, but he's in computer science. So even though I have a PhD, we make about the same amount of money, because of the field. Public health is very much tied into some similar with education. So I think that's again in passion. What do you want your life to look like? I also work from home. I have a lot of flexibility. So that allow me, maybe what I don't make up in income, I make up for in the flexibility within my life. And so I think all of those things are really important, but we do have to be honest about what are the careers that are going to get you a lot of money. How can you align your passions and kind of network that? A lot of times our students, I work at Duke, we do a lot of activities with North Carolina Central students, Durham Tech students. And so how can you align if you go to HBCU? Maybe I know your sons, you talked about Morehouse. My mom's a Spelman graduate as well. Are they doing something with Emory? And even those schools, they don't have to do anything and connect. They have enough reputation of their own. But some of the smaller HBCUs, how can you get an internship? What can you do in the summer to partner, really to continue to build yourself up in network? So I think that was number one that I did want to address. The majors is critical. It's critical because what are you going to be able to do when that job, comes out? And if you have loan payments due and you're making $30,000, $40,000, what is your life going to look like? And so how can you really use that time in college to make sure you're either, a minor or a double major, doing internships, all these opportunities? Are you traveling international? How can you really continue to build yourself up during that time? And I think the second was I think just it's so important, I think, to have conversations with elders, with people who have been on paths before, and to really absorb that knowledge and see what we can learn from them. So I think it's so important that we continue to build those relationships and just to listen and learn, because of, so much honor and respect for our elders. And I hate, those lack of communications and not engaging with each other, because I think that's how we all grow and that's how we learn to really, really move forward. So I hope I answered that just a bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me respond to the question that Sister Amatullah raised about people not speaking to each other. That to me is a critical dimension for us not to have that kind of relationship with each other. I guess the environment I grew up in was just the opposite of that. But I've gone to different masjids with a person from Wake Forest University who was from Egypt for one reason. He wanted to see how he would be received at these different Islamic centers. Were there hostesses to welcome him? Did anybody ask how he was doing, where he was from, etc.? It was his, you could say, action survey, because he came, his mother was a professor at Wake Forest University, but he was a new kid. He was still about 6, 7, but he was not a basketball player. And so the first response to everybody, almost to a dime, you must play basketball at Wake Forest. And the answer was always no. But he said he received the warmest reception at the communities in the community of Imam Warthi Muhammad's group. He said other places he would go to, they wouldn't even ask him how he was doing, not to mention shake his hand, inquire about his health, etc. He said there were a few exceptions, but for the most part, he felt more comfortable. Uh, Now, so for someone to walk into a center, a masjid, in a religious house, synagogue, Buddhist center, etc., and not be received with a welcoming spirit, there's something spiritually wrong in that environment. You should never be dismissive of people. You must ask yourself, who are you? The best you can be as a human being, so you can always learn something from someone else. And I hope that issue among seniors and young people, eradicates itself, because we can't afford that. That's a death sentence to your community. You got to maintain those relationships. And I guess if that's happening, we need to address it uh, with compassion, but that needs to be addressed. I guess by nature, I just speak to people automatically. So I don't, I would never put myself in a position not to speak to someone, even strangers on the street. If they address you, you should return an equal address of kindness to them. So for my sisters to bring that to our attention, it's serious enough for us to really give some thought to that. And let's see if we can assist those communities in some kind of capacity by making them aware. Your aura, no matter if it's a private house or a business center or a religious house, when you go in there, you don't feel an inviting spirit, no one's going to stay in that environment long. All of us want to be received, some kind of compassionate level of at least a minimum concern. And I'll end with this. I spent some time in Ghana and Benin one time, and I went to some different masjids in Benin. Some of them had all the marvelous mosaic this, minarets, marble floors, cold as ice. I'm gonna say that again. The reception was cold as ice. I went to the smaller communities with the little, I would consider struggling communities, people with very little material wealth that you could see, warm as my grandparents from South Carolina. Asked me if I had some food to eat. Where was I living at? They received me as a fellow traveler. So I know there's an issue, but I think sometimes the best way to deal with that, be reflective of yourself or inviting spirit first. Let them see you being not like that. And that will help that environment, I do believe. Inshallah. Okay, our time is almost at 3 o'clock, and I don't want to be the one to take all the time speaking. I try not to be as loquacious as I can be on occasion. So let me pause here, see if we have any final questions you want to ask our distinguished guest today. I want to thank her. I have to send you that paycheck in the very near future for your time.
Check is
Put
in the
it out on
mail,
IOU
Selena.
today. Oh man. But let me
So
see if there's any other questions for
we
you.
have a hand that went up, Amira Shahid.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Well,
assalam.
I've just been listening and enjoying the program. And I'm an older senior. I'm 72. And I've actually been in this community since I was 6 years old. And I raised,
Alhamdulillah.
yes, I raised my children. I've had 5 children. And I've put a lot of time into, I work jobs. But I put a lot of time into family, not enough time into cultivating myself. So now I am a empty nester,
Mm.
trying to figure out where do I go from here.
Mm.
for, for
Oh,
my,
you have a you
for
have a
my
song in your voice. Why don't you record something? Go right ahead. Is that
I
beautiful
want
voice? Beautiful voice.
feel a joy to that because I'm really serious though. I put a lot of time into helping other people, being a part of committees and organizations, and just wanted to, if you know people who came from the Elijah Muhammad era, and he said do for self, and we was always a part of doing something, and maybe more time than putting towards some helping someone else than helping ourselves. So now here
Yes,
I
ma'am.
am at this age trying to figure it out
Mm.
for me. And I enjoyed everything that everybody said, and the education, the degrees, and all of that. And I was trying to keep them getting a tissue box, because like,
Mm.
where do I go from here?
Mm.
As far as continuing on life and having a good quality of life, but at the same time, um, have to sustain life, whether it's financially or whatever. So there was
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
person out there, for myself. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We're in the same category in one sense. I'm 74 years of age, and I came to this community when I was about 13, inquiring. I didn't write my letter to 4047 Woodlawn till I went to college, but I've been around the community for quite a long time too. Um,
No, I know
I
the
think
other. Mm-hmm.
yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say it's important to find people with similar experiences to share that time with, to encourage each other. Um, there are social civic groups. I won't say for those of us that are mature in age that we can find some support from. Um, there's always a request for people who have that kind of experience to mentor younger people if you have that kind of energy. Um, the senior services group here in Forsyth County is very marvelous. They have all kind of activities. You can go to the centers to learn different skills if you like to, or even to volunteer in some capacities, even to deliver food to other senior citizens. We have a fantastic program. We deliver meals to seniors who live by themselves. So there are a number of things like that that I know that a lot of seniors are involved in. Some even assisting people in some kind of capacity in their homes who need that kind of assistance through DSS. And that could be, just one option to think about. I think about the group that I work with. It's called the HBCU Living Legends, and that group recognizes students who want to go to college. They try to give 3 scholarships to every HBCU in North Carolina, but they also recognize a living legend who graduated from one of those schools and made a name for him or herself. And most recently, the young lady who was in the Olympics was recognized for her work that she's doing, and she's mentoring other students who have that kind of aspiration. So finding that kind of niche, I think, you'll find some kind of hopefully satisfaction in doing something like that. Sister Amatullah, you want to add a comment to that? Some direction for our sister?
I can because I have often thought, well, when I grow up, what do I really want to do? Um,
Okay.
and I'm an empty nester, sorta, kinda. The little birdies keep on trying to get back in my nest. But Sister Amira, I understand. I understand what you're saying. Um, I would say, first of all, make istikara to ask
Mm-hmm.
Allah to guide you to what you should do. If you have an inkling of something you're interested in, make istikara over that and see what the result of that is. But also pursue the things that you like. One thing that you can do right away that our community needs is you can write about your experience growing up in our community, the experiences that you have had. And that's something that can help many, many people. Also, you might know Salima, used to be Sister Marva at the school.
Oh, yes,
She
ma'am.
she had a group where she would
Mhm.
meet with the teenagers, and they had just a little group, the social group. They would meet, and she mentored them, and a lot of good things came out of that. If something like that interests you, I'm sure there in Chicago that they still have a need for that. Um, the services that Brother Fleming mentioned that the broader community offers. Also, committees that might exist in the masjid that you attend might be something that interests you, and maybe from that committee work, it may lead you into another direction. Um, for example, if you are a cook, if you enjoy cooking, maybe you want to take a couple of cooking classes or go to culinary school at your age, whatever. Um, it While you still have life, everything is open to you. Everything is open to you. Sometimes in our minds, we limit ourselves as far as what I can do. You might be the oldest person in the college class. Okay, so you just be the oldest person in the college class, and you'll find that you will be able to help a lot of the young people in that class. So I would say just take time and reflect and ask Allah through your dua to guide you to what you should do and make it something that you enjoy. I mean, in your life, you've had to do what your obligations have been with the family. Now do something for yourself that you like. Maybe you like to paint. Maybe you want to um, send little tips to Muslim Journal. You can become a columnist for Muslim Journal. They really have a need for columnists for Muslim Journal. It might be, something of hints in motherhood or child rearing or um, I met a sister in Chicago when I lived there. She might still live there. Her name was Patricia El-Amin. And
Oh, that's my
Sister Patricia?
yes, she
And
live
she was
4 blocks.
married to the brother that
The
drove the truck. That drove
truck,
the.
my best
She had
friend.
about five or six. That sister was a master organizer. I just visited her house a couple of times, but the way that she was so organized in her house was phenomenal. I mean, really phenomenal. And this was back in 75, 76. So um, there's a need for that, in our community for young married people and whatnot. I'm just, kind of
Oh, this is
free
good. This is good stuff.
freestyling right now. But I'm just saying, don't think that you don't have opportunities. Put on your 21-year-old mindset of, or go back. What did you want to do when you were younger? And is it still possible for you to do it? Maybe you'll be a 73-year-old ballerina. I don't know. But um, I'm sure you will be unique. You won't have a lot of competition in that area. But I'm just adding a little humor to it. I'm just saying, don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. But if you were to write your experiences growing up in the Nation of Islam, that would be a great contribution to the community if you have the desire to do that. And you may
Yeah.
not, you may say, well, I'm not a writer. Okay, get a tape recorder and just speak in the tape recorder, record it on your phone, and just get it out there. And I can hook you up with a few people who can help you to make it into a book
Right.
if you want to make it that.
Mhm.
Oh,
I
thank you.
wanted to add one comment too before our sister leaves us. In the book that I was reading earlier, Wake Up to Human Life by Imam Muhammad, the very first page of that book, I'm going to quote him specifically because it relates to writing. And I've been asked several times to write about my experience working at Guaranty Bank. And when I was there in Chicago, working on the secretary staff, we made the transition from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Imam Wafi Muhammad. Not a lot of us are left. But those of us that are here, we have an obligation to tell our own story and not let others tell it for us. But this says the following: structure, guard, and publish the knowledge. We need knowledge. Then we need protection for it. How do you protect knowledge? Some people say you protect knowledge by not letting anybody interfere with it. Don't let anybody change it. Publish it. When you publish it, people know it. That's the protection. Yes, if you want to protect your knowledge, publish it. When you publish it, it is protected and the people know it. But if you keep it locked up to yourself, you will die and your knowledge will die with you. Or your enemy will get a hold of it and he will publish it after you in a corrupt form. Just to emphasize the need for us to do some writing and some recording. I pray to Allah that our sister who just left us will have the time to either do a recording on some kind of technology instrument of some sort. All right, her experiences are invaluable. Our youth need to hear that and learn from that as well going forward. You can very easily inspire someone, and
I'm
inspire.
here. I'm still here,
Okay, I'm
brother.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
You know what? It's
Okay, I'm
so
glad you hear that.
so
So I'm just
phenomenal. Okay.
trying to encourage my sister to consider writing her experiences and sharing that, because many of us don't have that knowledge base. And if Allah blessed to be around the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be around the memoir of Muhammad, and gain some inspiration in our own lives, we owe it to the future generations to write that down and share that experience with them, inshallah.
And Brother
Uh,
Fleming, because of
yes,
MAP5 and our engagement with civic engagement and responsibility and political engagement, you find, Sister Amira, also, at least here in California, many of our retirees are people who staff the voting polls. And so if you have an inclination for that, usually you get a training from your county, and it's something that you can do just when elections are held if you have an interest in
yes,
that, and it gives you an opportunity
yes,
to get out, to be with people in your community, just that you working with and you socialize with and you meet the public, and maybe that would be something that would interest you also.
Sister Amatullah, I used to be election judge for many years, and
Okay.
yeah, I did, and I had some health challenges that I had to stop. And
Okay.
I was going to tell Brother Fleming, it's really ironic that he mentioned Imam's book, because that was read on our lifeline, that we have a lifeline out of Flint, Michigan this morning. And in my course of getting my books together, I picked the book up today. I picked the book up today.
Okay.
He was leading me,
Yeah, Allah is sending you signs.
Yeah, you say, which are the papers of your Lord
Yeah,
will you
well,
deny?
you deny, exactly. And maybe you said you were an election judge. Okay. So maybe you can think of 5 people in your community or in your sphere that you know, and see if you can recruit those 5 people to do what you did. If you don't have the physical, ability to do it now, try and encourage others to do that and share your experience with them, and you might be able to encourage them to take on that responsibility, and we'll be increasing our civic and political engagement in our community.
yes,
Just
I
as a
wonder,
suggestion.
we
yeah,
was thinking about doing with Sister Halima Muhammad, Imam's niece.
Halima down she's in Atlanta now, right?
Yes, ma'am. Neighborly Needs. Neighborly Needs.
Yes.
And so,
yes,
matter of
neighborly
fact,
needs.
I was intending to call her yesterday, but it got kind of late, so I'm going to call her today, because I remember when we were formulating a group, and they actually got it started, but I don't know. She had to kind of move around a little bit, but I'm going to revisit that conversation with her, because when you kind of ask me who I am, I want always to be a motivation speaker. I
Okay.
thought I was going to be a lawyer. It's when I started having my children, and that kind of took
Okay.
it away. But did some paralegal work for a couple of lawyers, in my life, so I still have my thinking cap on for that. I think I just got kind of complacent when I started having health challenges. And I'm like, now I'm listening to you all here, and you're motivating me, to get back up in gear. Like you said, Sister Amatullah, I do that. It's the car prayer, so Allah can direct me, But I really enjoy what you all said to me, and it's like being coached.
Alhamdulillah. Well, you
Alhamdulillah,
got a lot on the
alhamdulillah.
ball. You got a lot on the ball from what you're
Yes,
saying. You got a lot
yes,
of skills. You have a lot that our community needs. And
Yes,
that
thank
goes back to what Brother Fleming started out with. And I think maybe my Imam Michael or Muhammad Sharif, one of them mentioned the fact of, we all have different capacities. And you just
hmm
have to take like a self inventory and say, okay, what can I do and what do I enjoy doing? Because you
Yes,
want to do something that you get enjoyment and fulfillment at, and then look at, okay, where can I use that?
yes.
And, just open those doors, inshallah.
Thank you all
Yeah.
so much. I tell you, I feel, Alhamdulillah, Rabbi
One more
Alamin.
thing.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
One more thing.
Yes,
One
ma'am.
more thing, Haja Tawhida.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Uh,
salam.
Wow.
I was inspired to write a cookbook from not only my children, but from my sister who wrote one. And I took that
Mm.
inspiration to the Muslim Master Muslim group. Women of Mashimurathine, and I started out, I don't know, maybe 10 of my own recipes, and then I started extending it and expanding it to the community, the sister community at Mashimurathine, and now we have 60 pages.
Alhamdulillah.
We're close to
Wow.
publication. We've done all the editing. Now we're trying to, we found out from Sister Amatullah as we were on our way to printing that we have to make sure that the copyrights, the pictures are not under concern for not being copyrighted.
Yeah.
So we had to
That's
pull a lot of those pictures, and now we're doing some more cooking to get pictures that we actually are making, taking ourselves. So that's another option that you might consider to just get with the sisters and create a cookbook. That's
Alhamdulillah.
it. That's it. That's not like,
Brother Fleming, please bear with me one
Alhamdulillah.
more time. Just bear with me. I'm gonna take a
Yes,
Fleming 30 seconds.
we
I'm gonna take a
yes,
Fleming
ma'am.
30
Go,
seconds,
go,
please.
go right ahead.
Brother
I got you
Fleming.
on the watch right now. Go right ahead, Sister
To,
Amatullah. You know.
to address Amatullah's question or thing that her comment that she threw out there earlier in the program. And I would say, and take it, I want to say it in the best spirit. Sister Amatullah, some of the older people, we may not want to interact with the younger people because of the way that they think. But I say that I think if the community has more, we have to have more opportunities of interaction between the elders and the youth. And if you're only coming to Juma or just the Eid prayer, and you don't in your community have other kind of activities, um,
Mhm.
people may not leave their comfort zone and extend themselves to other people. For an example, my husband grew up in Texas, and I grew up in New York. So two different kind of cultural environments growing up. We can walk from I stopped wanting to go to the movies with him because after any movie we went to, he would have to find a group of people and say, "What did you think about that movie?" Now, see, with me, I'm like, "Let's get to the car. Let's go home. Let's go to, we're going to get, um, I'll discuss the movie
Mhm.
with my friends." Okay, but that's a different orientation. We were out eating just the other day with my daughter. So he sat down at a table next to, he spent more time talking to the young sister at the other table than he spent talking to me and my daughter. But that's okay. That's him. So they're different. I think the environment that the person grew up in and their comfort, whether they're introvert or extrovert, um, whether or not they will reach out to the younger people. And then also you have to consider that we've come through 50 or 60 years of this society consciously trying to draw a wedge between the older and the younger. Distrust. Oh, our parents, they just don't understand. Oh, can't trust the older generation. All of that. So we have to get through all of that, and also the fact that some who may not be, let's say, maybe the 40 and the 50-year-olds, they may be so traumatized with just trying to struggle with day-to-day existence that they don't see outside of what's going on in their own personal life. So I think that we have to encourage those people who have that kind of outgoing personality to interact with the younger people. And I've experienced um, there's some young people, they don't even want to be bothered with older people, just to be honest. I mean, that's the vibe that they get, that they throw out there. And sometimes you have to
Mhm.
chip away at that chip on their shoulder, but you have to kind of have a dedicated personality to do that. But I think
Mhm.
in the different Muslim communities, as we develop, um, I'll give you an example. I was talking to some late 30 year olds the other day, and they challenged me. They said, what we need at the masjid, we need to have a day when um, you put up your songs and we're going to put up our songs and we're going to see which songs are the better one. So they put that challenge out to me. I said, well, okay, I'll float that out there and see, what I get. And so, um, but if we hadn't had that conversation, I definitely would not have thought about that. But if you remember when Imam Muhammad came into the community life, he encouraged us in Chicago and some other places, adapted it. I wasn't living here in Oakland at the time, but they adapted it too, where we used to have family night. And I think that if
Yes.
more communities brought that back, where's the family game night or, just a social night or whatever it is, um, that it will at least present the opportunity for the generations to talk. And that group that I mentioned that Salima had in Chicago, it was just a talk session. They started out with, they would just come together and they would just talk about whatever was on their mind. And from that, I think they took trips. They eventually took a trip. I think that was a group that she took to Morocco or someplace. But it has to
Mhm.
start, with little baby steps, and then inshallah it will increase. So there's my
Yes.
cue. Okay.
Your 15
Sorry.
seconds up, but you
Okay.
did a
That was
good
a
job on
Fleming.
that.
That was a Fleming 15 seconds. That was a Fleming 15
No.
seconds.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, listen, I want to just say that we did a $20 million complex recently in Forsyth County called Intergenerational Center right beside the Senior
Alhamdulillah.
Services Center. And the idea
Alhamdulillah.
behind this center is to get the generations together to do various activities. But
Mhm.
there's an area with the cafeteria there, rooms to have meetings in. I think one of the hospitals has facilities there also for certain kind
Mhm.
of things they want to make sure you're healthy with. But it's a very good concept of making people from different generations to come together and basically learn from each other. That's really the
Yeah.
bottom line. So I always encourage whatever community I go into, what kind of intergenerational activities are you having to bring the community together beyond Juma, beyond the Eid celebration? When do we sit down and have a meal and or some activity for fun? Life is not always, oh, I've got to be so serious. No, smile sometime. Have have sometimes you can enjoy the simple things in life. Or as my math teacher used to say, I want to smell my roses while I can. Because
Mhm.
once I return to my Lord, I can't smell, but she put a little adjective in front of it, a thing. I'll end there. I want to thank everybody for participating today. I hope we gained something from our experience together. If our ears and hearts are open, we learn from each other. And
Yeah.
inshallah, we use that today with each other. Uh, any final comments from our current co-host before we conclude today's conversation? Sister Cheryl, you have a comment I'm sure you want to make, my loquacious sister, who I really, have great respect for because you remind me of my daughter so much. Go right ahead, Cheryl.
I didn't realize I honestly did not and looking at her, I would never tell that she was about to turn 50, that she would be my peer. She looks hella young,
Yeah,
which is a compliment, which is a compliment.
yeah.
I in welcome to the crew. Um,
Mm,
I would just say that I continue to say that the way to, intergenerational is important. And I, I don't know. I know that I continue to look back at Najua's wedding and I say that, hey, that intergenerational was kicking. So I don't know what you're talking about, Sister Amatullah. You on here telling people the generation didn't get along. We was kicking it. Them intergenerations were kicking it. I'm snitching on everybody. Tahita was there. Is she still on here? Yeah,
Uh-oh.
Sister Tahita was here.
Yes.
They was
Oh,
getting, they
they were
what
getting
like my mother would say they was cutting the rug. We gonna say my generation said they was
mm,
kicking it, Brother Fleming.
mm. All
I'm
right.
telling,
That's
It's
good news.
70, it's 75.
they was
That's all
kicking
right.
it.
Alhamdulillah.
Sister Nisa was up in there. Them sisters was kicking it. I'm gonna tell you, I broke my ankles. I was on
Uh-oh.
the floor too. I broke my ankles. That's what we
Oh,
say.
alhamdulillah.
We was breaking
Alhamdulillah.
ankles and
Alhamdulillah.
breaking backs, and they was kicking it.
Mm.
So yeah, and they was playing all kind of music. So it was everything from James Brown to Too Short, everything else. So
Mm,
whatever.
mm,
So I just think that
mm.
it's a matter of everybody thinks the generation in front of them, was old, and everybody thinks the generation after them had problems. So, so it's always just, I think the number one word, we always say this on this show, is the way to understand someone else is use them two
Listen.
appendages on the side of your
Yes.
face.
It's
Listen,
Yes.
listen and ask. Ask them. Ask what you need. What do you need? What do you need
Mm.
in order for us to do better? And after we say the prayer, I'll give you your 5 from MAP 5.
Helen.
Because we have the power. And how do we
Yes,
have
we
the
do.
power? We got 5 pillars. So not just
Mm.
the regular 5 pillars of being a Muslim, but we got our 5 pillars that MAP 5. So after
Yes, we do.
before you all leave, we'll reiterate them. These mine.
I'm about to say. Just as a reminder to all of us, when we're about 10 years of age, brothers and sisters, we begin to form our value system. So when you're talking to someone else, just think in that context. What were they engaged in when they were 10? And what were you doing when you were 10? And how can we connect with each other on that basis with respect? With respect. All right, with that said, we'd like to begin with the dua and end with the dua. So if you would join me in this short dua, it's the very last surah in the Holy Quran. And I usually start off in Arabic, but I like to end in English. And the dua is very, very simple. And it goes like this. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. In the name of Almighty God, most gracious, most merciful, say I seek refuge with the Lord and cherisher of mankind, the King or ruler of mankind, the Allah or judge of mankind, from the evil whisperer, the same who whispers into the hearts of men and jinn, then withdraws after this whisper. Amen.
I
Sister
mean,
Cheryl?
Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us as we continue to kick off this season 4, educating, engaging, and empowering our communities, and speaking on just topics of importance on proactive community engagement and civic responsibility, and civic participation, and political engagement, and turning our faith into action. These are topics that are of utmost importance. And we look forward to speaking to you again next week. Same time, same space, same place, and same faces. That would be 1 p.m. on that
Yes,
coast.
when the sun
Right.
rises. When the sun rises
Where the
every morning.
sun takes its time coming up at that disrespectful hour. In the
yes.
middle of the country where things happen. And on the west
West
coast
Coast.
at 10 a.m., where the sun turns those beautiful colors as it meets the
Oh,
horizon.
Mm.
And we ask that you do something today and every day that makes life a little bit better for someone else without the expectation that they do anything in return. Don't
Yes,
advertise it. Don't throw it on
yes.
Instagram or X or Facebook. Don't even tell anybody. Just do it
Do it.
because it's the right thing to do.
To do.
Stay
Alhamdulillah.
powerful, stay purpose driven, stay prayerful, stay politically engaged, and participate civically. And with that, we wish you, we pray for you a great day and a great week. And we say to you that when you change what you see
Amen. Remember Allah,
Amen.
Allah, remember you.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
a
Amen.
wrap.
All right. Assalamu
Assalamualaikum.
alaikum. Alaikum assalam.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace
Pass the
out.
word next Monday, 10 Pacific, noon Central, 1 Eastern. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.